principal at the high school.
It's being recorded.
He also submitted his resignation at the end of that contract, so we have to have the board act on that, and we talked about the reasoning behind that. So that is a resignation as of June 30th, 2024.
All right. And with this one right here, each one of these will have to be separate. Can't do them together.
So, and correction on Jacqueline Spencer's middle school coach. She was math, and she has, we're moving her into the coach position and she's
So she's not middle, so not math teacher, but coach.
coach, right?
Well, we had moved her to a reading, she was going to be the reading teacher and then.
But she hadn't signed the contract for the middle school for the reading teacher.
The contracts don't actually mention the position. It's in the contract, so it's fine. That is, she was a sixth grade teacher, then she moved into the reading teacher. She was in the reading teacher position until she resigned.
So does the motion still continue to be math teacher, or do we just say an instructional coach?
Whatever you want to, I mean, whatever.
That's because remember now this is on public record, so I just want to make sure. that Coach is instructional coach.
Going to do prior to her departure.
Instructional coach. Okay. All right. Would someone like to make motions?
Instructional coach.
She was a reading intervention teacher.
Okay. Reading.
So she's reading intervention.
Reading interventionist. Reading intervention teacher.
Yes, ma'am.
That was your exact teacher. Yes.
But we're doing each one individually. Question.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I thought we were leaving that one off. Okay. All right, for that one, I know specifically for that one. Okay. Okay, all right, well, cool. For those two, then we'll,
Two.
yeah, just do the motion to table. Yeah.
Dr. Beto, I'd like to table the approval of the resignations for Christopher Teague, a high school science teacher, and Susanna Schrader as an elementary school librarian for closed session.
All right, motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you very much. Motion has been made and seconded. All right, all in favor? Raise hand under aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0 to table the resignations, potential resignations of Christopher Teague and Susanna Schrader. All right.
Dr. Beto, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Jacqueline Spence as a reading intervention teacher effective August 18th, 2023, pending receipt of liquidated damages.
All right, thank you very much. A motion has been made. Do I have a second? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Roberts. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Can't see none. All in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Hearing seen none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. We like to thank Ms. Spence for her dedication to Brown Deer, and we wish her well in her future endeavors.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Melissa Michaelchuk as a sixth grade math teacher effective August 18th, 2023.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? All right, Ms. Robinson is seconded. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. We'd like to thank Melissa for her service and we wish her well in her future endeavors. All right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Damian Woods as an interim high school assistant principal effective June 30th, 2024.
Okay, yeah, that's right. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Ashley is, all right, Ms. Ashley is seconded. Any discussion?
I'm just wondering why we have to have this motion on the table so early into the fiscal year.
Because again, there's the statutory requirements of, I mean, you could do it at any time, but part of the agreement of bringing him on was that he would go through this process to eliminate the statutory requirement to provide the renewal by January 31st, giving the district more time to evaluate, and as well, January, December would not be the time to be opening up a position for June, for July 1st. So we're gonna wait till later in spring. This just clears the way for that to happen without any issues with the contract.
Sounds good.
All right, any other questions or any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Aye.
Did she?
Aye.
Oh, okay, there she goes. All right, any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. All right, let's move forward on to our item 5C, approve the annual meeting budget. Mr. Clemick.
All right, well, as we do every time this time of year, we have to prepare for the annual meeting, which is scheduled for Thursday, September 28th, here at the campus. Because of the publication requirements that have to be in the paper over several weeks, so we have to go through that process. So as a result, we need to make sure we're updating the budget so that we're ready to go when that happens. Just kind of bring it here. There, so what I have presented with for you is okay, so I presented sharing the annual meeting budget with you tonight. Since we approved the preliminary budget back in June, the budget was passed by the state. We did add the $325 per pupil increase in our revenue limit authority. We had some other things that became clear, which we're able to include. So if you remember at that time, if we didn't have that revenue available, I wanted to show where we were from a spending standpoint, and we had a $350,000 deficit at that point. Well, since everything got shifted, we now have $150,000 surplus right now. So we are actually moving in the right direction. We're not done yet because we will, of course, have additional hiring that will take place. We'll have additional benefit elections and other salaries and benefits lock into place. We'll have a few other things that will come into play. Obviously, we have some positions that are currently vacant, so that depending on how long they're vacant, we'll have some savings there. We'll see what happens. So the final budget will be developed over the next several months. We'll have our third Friday count coming up on September 15th. As you heard earlier, we're actually right on track to potentially be about the same or potentially have an increase this year, which could provide some more revenue. So from a big picture goal, my thought was this year, just knowing that next year, the 24-25 school year is going to be a much more of a significant budgetary challenge. I would like to keep us so that we maintain at least a $240,000 surplus, which would reflect the tax refund that we're getting back, the property tax refund that we were able to charge back for because of the loss of property tax last year. If we continue to spend that money on ongoing things, we'll just make whatever we have to do the following year more challenging. So I'd like to at least target that. So we're pretty close. We're, like I said, we're within $100,000 with that. So I'm not going to read through the whole thing. A lot of the language you've seen is similar, but we did just crystallize a few things. And as I mentioned on the last bullet point on the highlights, our ultimate goal will be to maintain at least a $241,000 surplus so that money can go back in the fund balance at the end of this fiscal year.
Question, Kev.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure everybody's kind of read through this thing or whatever, and some of the questions are going to be probably the same ones I'm ready to ask. When I looked at so we know that it's going to be a 13, or we just budgeting for a 13.5% increase in the health insurance premiums.
Well, I budgeted, I put that cost in, and then we do the reality of what people select. So obviously the total cost in dollars reflects changes in enrollment.
Right, I'm just looking at it from that standpoint. And then the one that we know for, so transportation, we do know it's going to be a 7.1%
7.1
increase, because that was, because we did it for, was the contract for 2 years?
3 years.
For 3 years?
This will be the second. of-
And so we know it's gonna be 7.1 this year, then the following year, 7.1?
No, it's based on it's based on the October, November, December CPI average for those 3 months. So as you know, CPI the inflation rate has been dropping, so I would anticipate next year it'll, if it continues that trend, we could be more in the 3-4% range, because we based on whatever happens at the end of this calendar year.
And like I said, the reason I was asking that question is because I know what we paid year before, there was the increase, and then this year, 7.1% increase, then the following year, and I couldn't remember when we did the 3 year, we did a projection of being like, by the end of it would be X amount percent.
It could, yeah, well, there's the piece of what the, per route cost is. We are reevaluating the routes. We did have to add a special education route this year because of students, so that's also increasing the overall cost, but we're looking to make sure, as I said, I think I mentioned this earlier, I met with Right Way. We're going to be reevaluating at the end of September just to see what ridership is actually like. Again, if we have a number of new families, we don't know if they'll all be riding the bus or not. We don't know if last year's history will be any indication of what this year will be like. So we'll look to see what makes sense. Last year, we had discussed going back down to 7 routes, but the construction that was going on in the village caused challenges with making sure kids would get home within a reasonable time because of routing that would have to happen when roads were closed, things like that. So we kind of let it go last year, but we'll take another hard look this year, especially with the increase in costs. The 7% and then a 7.1% is not great to absorb, but.
And then, and then my last question had to do with the our Fund 50 and the school lunch breakfast thing or whatever. Because I know the surpluses that we had in the past. And with the dollar amount that we're charging right now is the same dollar amount that we've charged the last few years, correct?
Yes, correct, yep. Yeah, we are not we don't have to do any adjustments. You don't adjust prices if you have a positive fund balance, which we do. But we don't have to make any changes there.
Okay, because I was just wondering, I didn't want to be like, we have, with so much money, so much surplus in that food budget that we can't eventually spend it all. Then, do we turn around and do we pass the savings back on to the parents for the lunch costs to go down because we have surplus?
But unfortunately, you can't subsidize paid lunches with the federal money. So that's not the intention of it. So you can't just give away lunches. The school lunch program is very particular in how money is expended. So we are talking about potentially significant renovation to the North Commons next year, which would be a significant piece. We did, of course, as you know, the board approved, which isn't reflected in this because it happened in July, but we replaced 6 ovens in the two kitchens. So that was $150,000 we spent on those. Again, it's not reflected in this report because it wasn't in that fiscal year. So we are still looking at other options to continue to spend that down to make sure we have what we need for in our food service program.
Do we, our free and reduced lunch numbers, are we at like 60%?
I don't know where we are this year with the numbers that they're coming in and how many families have reported. We were usually around 50% thereabouts, and it fluctuates a little bit.
Okay. Because I thought once we hit a certain threshold, all of a sudden it just converts, period.
We're still in that, we're still in that situation where, again, it kind of goes back and forth. We are able to, because of at least where we are, we're able to do the severe breakfast needs program. So we do pay for breakfast. We're able to do that, but lunches are still need to be compensated for. So for those who can afford it. So we continue to look at that, and obviously if the numbers change, we can look at it. But again, just making sure I don't want to get reimbursed for every meal because I'm gonna try to help our spend down either. So I look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So I don't need to go through section by section unless you have other questions. I don't, Ms. Peterson, I quite.
Yeah, and this is just going back to transportation, and I'm just trying to see if I'm calculating this right or if it's too late in the day here. But if I look at the people transportation line on page 10, where it says that 22-23 transportation expense was $584,750. The 23-24 expense was $690,000. The change of about $105,000, and it says that this was an 18% change.
Some of it has to do with the routing, so just reflecting, and it was a couple of things. One is that the expense, we did use some federal money to help offset the displaced students. That was part of an unexpected cost. I don't know exactly where that's gonna fall this year, because if families still claim homelessness, we still have a responsibility for transporting them, so I'm kind of trying to be careful there. And then the other piece is the fuel. There's also a fuel surcharge, which is
Yes.
part of this, which is hard to predict. Obviously, fuel has gone back up, it seems like,
Very
getting
true.
close to $4 a gallon again, so I'm trying to be careful and at least have, money set aside for that.
But they include that potential fuel cost number in the contract, correct?
Yeah, well, no, we pay 50 cents for every 5 cents over 250, and it fluctuates. So there's the route charge. Which is the one that goes up 7.1%. There's a $5 charge for the app that they charge every day for the Here Comes the Bus app, and then the fuel service charge is on top of that,
So the 7.1% is solely related
on the base rate.
base rate. And then I'm going on the revenue side, so we are not getting in any type of. I can find it again.
Page 14.
Looks like we got in at some point some transportation revenue.
That's one of those items that I don't, sometimes you don't
No
include
budget.
certain things, because then it's, you have a little bit of a cushion. So that's one of the areas where we probably will end up getting $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, and it's
Yeah.
kind of a thing. And if you look back at previous budgets, we've never had a number in there, but I did want to report that is what we did receive. And that is tied to the reports that we filed based on the ridership. So
So
again,
is this first column actual or last? year's
we're still finishing up the year, but it's pretty close. I mean, I've gone through and run the numbers of where we are. There's still a couple things maybe outstanding and other bills or revenues that we're still adjusting, but it's pretty close.
So we said we didn't budget for the state transportation aid last year.
Correct. I know something else is gonna come up that we didn't expect, so it's nice to have. a
Yeah,
little-
definitely.
Where is this?
Because if I tell you, here's the exact revenue number, and that's, and it doesn't come in there.
Will never be
Yeah.
exact. Budget is.
So, I mean, important to note that we filed our last claim for ESSER III, which I'm using about $760,000. So I targeted about 800. So we do have the remainder of it we're gonna use this year, and it will be all used this year. One way or another. We did lose we had that extra per pupil aid money that came from the state of $106,000 that is gone. Again, Kids Ahead grant is gone. There are other things that were in the budget, like the mental health discussion they're having. They haven't finalized what those numbers are or what their purpose is, so I haven't included a revenue or an expense for those yet. Again, some of that stuff will hopefully become clear over the next 2 months, and then when we present the final budget in October, we'll have things more crystallized. But the one other thing which I had brought up I wasn't sure in June, we are gonna run the after school grant at the middle high school through Fund 10. So that's why you see the revenue and an expense lumped together. Right now, it's about $400,000. They just offset each other. So that'll be money and expenses that will go away after next year. But that's a piece that was different than we didn't include in the previous versions. So again, this will be what's published in the paper. I'll have a presentation based on it, and I'll share any other updates that we have. We'll have a pretty good sense of our count at that point. And then we'll make the final adjustment. The one other big thing I did want to mention too is that we also had numbers for the cost for open enrollment out of the open enrollment transfer numbers. We did not have back in June. And so those went up significantly. Let me scroll back here to my open enrollment part.
What page?
This page 5. So the new numbers are 8618 for regular education students. It was 8,300 last year, and 13,470 for special education. That was 13,100. So just keeping the number of students, and what I did to budget to be safe, is I kept the same number of open enrollment out. It took our open enrollment out to $2.15 million. It's not insignificant. I bumped it up to
2.250.
I think it comes in at 215, 2,150,000 and I added
Add another 100,000.
yeah, so our added 50,000 right now. So it is it's a big increase. So
Yeah, definitely. Did we, how are we calculating the 586 projected revenue? Is that the?
that's based on the increase of
57 students, with 7 of them being IEP?
yes, and I'll be double checking once we get those locked in that is the number actually. Because I don't know if, somebody else could have been identified as special education or somebody falls off from that category. So, but that is the numbers I had. It was 500. Yeah, so I'm using those numbers to be as close as possible. It was $501,000, I believe, last year. So
Okay.
any other questions related to the budget or anything? Otherwise, you'll see an updated version in October.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Clemick when it comes to this budget? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clemick. On that, a lot of hard work going into that, and thank you for going and dotting the i's and crossing the t's for us and being able to do that. All right, so would someone like to make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 annual meeting budget as presented.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Motion made. We have a second?
I will second that one.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Clemick. All right, let's go on to our item D, approval of the school district report on restraint and seclusion. Would that be Ms. Ramos?
Yes, it's that time of the year where I report to DPI. And I am happy to report that we had 0 seclusions in all buildings. However, we did have 8 restraints in middle school in the 22-23 school year and 6 at the high school. At middle school, it did involve just 1 child with an IEP, and at the high school, 3.
So it was 1 child 8 times.
Yes.
Have there been any adjustments made?
We are working with the parent, in regards to, he has a lot of needs. And some of that does also involve mental health,
So,
and it's progressing as he gets a little older.
all right, so 1 student was involved in 8 restraints for the middle school. But we do have a plan
Yes.
in
and so-
place.
Yes, we do. And so restraint and seclusion is always a last resort, and it's only if they are going to harm themselves and imminent harm to themselves or another person. And in this scenario, it would have been himself. So, and his parents always, whenever we do a seclusion or restraint, parents is always contacted within 24 hours. A form is filled out and we do debrief with the parent. His plan has been updated several times.
Middle school, is this his last year of middle school, or is this, he's
Well, yeah,
7th grade, or is going to
It'll
8th,
be an eight.
or her? We don't know which, but,
We don't know.
okay, all right, okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Ms. Ramos, I didn't hear the answer to Dorinthia's question. She said, had there been any changes?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Vito pretty much kind of asked the same thing too, so. His plan has been.
I heard. Okay, see, that's because she was saying that he's high need, he's special ed, he's all of this. But did we see a need to change anything that was being done so that maybe this year there won't be 8? Or it's just, we're assuming. just
Ms. Smith, you're kind of coming in and out a little bit.
I was just wondering, I was waiting to hear the answer to Dorinthia's question.
All right, so a change to the plan, I think, like she said, I think I actually kind of asked the same question. Did we have any updates on that young person's plan to be able to try to make some changes and try to potentially make a change of behavior or whatever? So I think,
Right, and she told us what they were currently doing, so we didn't see a need for changes. And just 8 is kind of what it is for that situation. Is that what we can expect for next year, even with the maturity level as growth?
Well, we are in close communication with the parents. I mean, I don't wanna say too much because it's one child. And,
Right,
there's other contributing factors. That if I continue, would identify him or her.
Right.
And
no,
so,
don't identify, but I'm just making sure that we have tools that we're using, but I'm sure
yes, we
8
do.
just sounds like a lot.
And we are, and
Okay.
we have been working over the summer in regards to his plan or her plan with the parent.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
are you gonna talk about the high school?
I went over the high school. We had 6 restraints, total of 6 students, 3 with disabilities.
So with that 6, it was like 1 incident per student. Huh? All right, questions for Ms. Ramos? Hearing and seeing none, would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the 2023 school district report on restraint and seclusion as presented.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Walker. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second,
Was that Ms. Bacon?
yes.
All right, motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. All right, let's go on now to item E, social emotional learning update. And that would be,
Me again.
all right. All right.
Social emotional learning update, I did upload. A PowerPoint was uploaded, with a few slides. Just show the SEL data for 2023. Also included is the executive summary, which gives a little background of what was going on in 2023 and what's going on moving forward in 23-24. I don't know if you had a chance to review it, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer or attempt to answer.
So my question is, what causes a mediation to happen versus what causes a circle to happen?
So a mediation can be done between 2 parties or more. A circle would be, for example, a classroom circle would be for unity, community, relationship building within the classroom. So they do that in the classroom. Mediations sometimes are done outside between 2 people or between a staff member and a student.
I have 2 questions. The first one is in relationship to the SEL data. And when I look at the number of mediations and number of circles, even though the middle school has the smallest population, seems that they have more than it, they have most of the mediations and circles. Is there a specific reason that you think that is? Outside of them, of course, outside of them being 11 to 13 years old and feeling themselves and all the rest of that different stuff. But is there anything else that you think that could be a contributing factor to that?
I think a contributing factor is that we came back to school full time this school year. And we are seeing a lot of students coming back without skills to mediate and to socialize with one another. And that set us back a little. And so we are relearning how to engage with our peers within our community.
And social media is driving force and.
And there is a lot more of it is due to social media that's happening outside of school, that's being brought inside of school. So I have seen on the data, a lot of social media, now we have to mediate that here in school.
And then my last question is, well, it's actually a 2-parter. what is CICO again?
Check in, check out.
Check in, check out, okay. So next time, I'll just kind of put that in there, just so everybody can remember exactly what that is, the check in, check out. Or under that tier 2. And then my last one is there a reason that we're no longer working with American Relaxation Services? For the tier 3?
They, on their, request, they're ending the contract due to staffing issues. They are unable to support the district going forward.
Okay, so Rogers Rogers is gonna take over. Well, not necessarily take over, but now we're gonna end up with Rogers, Wisconsin Children's Hospital will continue with Jewish Family Services, right?
Yes.
All right, and the New Leaf Services is a no-go again? Okay, and the same thing with them? Was it staffing or was it?
Well, they strictly worked at the elementary school and he did some professional development for us. That was a contract done before I came. I sat in on some of the professional developments. And I think I want to have a little bit more oversee on the books that are being used. That book was over 10 years old. And so we want something more prevalent. So if we can work with him on choosing different books for that would be ideal. So there could be a potential for us to continue working with him depending on new books.
Okay, and we've got that just in case if we do bring on other vendors or whatever, we do have that money within the budget in that department, correct, Kevin?
Well, the
Kids ahead.
we don't have Get Kids Ahead anymore. I mean, we did end up, what we did spend from New Leaf was relatively small amount. And then the other services like Jewish Family, we're not involved, that those aren't district costs at all. Those are between.
That's collaboration between us. And
I mean, we partner with them, but the costs, the expenses from the families, their insurance and so there's no cost to the district at all. And those, only the professional development will be paid for and those pieces with.
So, but if we do, Ms. Ramos, she does identify some other potential vendors or collaborators or whatever have you, we'd be able to have dollars within our budget to be able to bring those individuals on to be able to help support our students.
Yeah, it would depend. I mean, we have money set aside in a number of different ways. I mean, gaggle therapy is also available, something that we invested in last year as well. But again, some of these relationships are, we just opened our door, we provided space for like American Relaxation Services. So again, there was no cost to it. If there's another partner that we can bring in and use the space, that's, doesn't change anything on our end, and it's another resource for our students.
All right, okay, sounds good or whatever, because I was actually kind of looking at from the standpoint of looking at those numbers for the middle school. If we had some more supports in the middle school, with some of those other numbers actually change. So, because that's kind of a high number when you think about it, we had 470 students in the middle school last year. And if we end up with 171 things, I mean, that seems like a pretty high number when we look at the total number of students and stuff. So I was just wondering, would we be able to maybe have some more supports in place at the middle school to be able to help with some of those behaviors? Yes, Ms. Ashton.
So I have two questions. One, as I'm looking at your next steps, and where you're talking about creating a schedule to push into the classrooms, the circles. The classrooms for all schools or one particular school or for 2 of the 3 schools?
So it's easier to do elementary, middle, harder in high school because they're older and some of them don't engage.
Okay.
But a lot of teachers are open to having a push-in circle for the first 7 minutes of class.
Okay.
And it's really ideal so that you build that community within that classroom. It has been done at the high school. They are more open again to having them come in.
And that was gonna be my second question. So the teachers are amenable to conducting the circles, because it does, from my vantage point, it is really helpful, especially when you have buy-in from your teachers who are willing to do those, because you do really get a chance to get out in front of some things that, i.e. on Monday morning, might have happened on the weekend. You know what I'm saying? And you just are getting out front and being proactive and engaging in some really constructive conversations in terms of conflict resolution, problem solving, and the whole nine. So I'm glad to see that.
I just want to add, in addition to what Director Ramos has said, it'll be a gradual release model. It'll be starting at the elementary school level. This summer, the SEL coach and the social worker at the elementary school level took advantage of planning together with those circles so that they can collaborate with the teachers at the elementary school level. So it's really looking good.
Good, great, thank you.
So Dr. Vito, you asked, what does CICO mean? You said check in, check out, but what is that?
Check in, check out is a strategy that's used for a student. So let's say Dr. Beadle is having some issues in the classroom. We meet as a team. We meet as a team, and that's part of our EMLSS work that we'll be doing. And we'll pinpoint maybe some strategies some behaviors that we'd like to change. So I may take 2, because more than 2 would be too much. So we're gonna work on maybe not you calling out when you're not supposed to, or leaving the classroom. So we'll work on those 2. So that will be our check in, check out. We'll pinpoint someone that he has a great relationship with in the building. He can tell us, someone in the building can tell us, and that will be his point person. So in the morning, he'll get a check in, check out, let's say with Kevin. And Kevin will say, oh, Dr. Beadle, how are you doing today? You know, are you having a great day? And you'll say no. And Kevin will ask you, well, how do you think you're gonna do on, not blurting out or calling out when you're not supposed to? And you might say, I don't know. So he's gonna give you a little pep talk, like, I know you're gonna have a great day. And it's just that person that will start your day off well. He may see you at lunch and you may say, oh, I had a great morning. Then he might check in on you at the end of the day, and then there's a sheet usually they fill out, and that gets tracked and monitored.
Okay.
You get nervous in real life.
Okay. I'm like, hey, man, you're not getting away from it.
It's also important to add, Dorothea, check in, check out is a PBIS, a positive behavior intervention support strategy. So it comes through the lens of PBIS. So been around for actually quite some time. Check in, check out.
About how many students would be on that?
It really is on a case by case basis, because check in, check out doesn't work for everyone.
Okay.
And sometimes it's just one behavior we're trying to change. At the elementary, we just pick 1 or 2. Sometimes they can have 5 challenging behaviors, but we're trying to change at a time. So it's really on a case by case basis, and the team would determine if that's a step we want to start first.
And it's a tier 2 intervention, meaning that research wise is meant to fit the needs of about 20% of the students.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. All right, let's go on to our next item. Item F, discussion and approval of the staff handbook. That would be Dr. Kelsey Brown or
That'd be.
Willie, okay?
So, sorry. Staff handbooks are the most exciting thing I've worked on today. But anyway, so yes, we do. I'm just excited. I guess I'm excited the fact that for the first time in 7 years, we've had back-to-back renewals of a handbook. So we'll take that as a positive step. And we did make changes. We didn't just put a new year on. So, so we did, I presented those to you about a week ago, just in case you had any questions or concerns. Some of the changes that were highlighted in yellow were legal changes that came from Neola, because Neola, as part of our subscription, we do pull language for handbooks from them, and they tie to our policies. So any policies that were updated, they update language. And then some of these adjustments that are in blue were local decisions, either based on just clarifications or just things that we wanted to reiterate and highlight and draw attention to in the handbooks because of perhaps behaviors or issues that we experienced in the last year. So just trying to make sure everyone is aware of the expectations, kind of resetting things. So There's a lot of similarities between the three handbooks. We do have a handbook for professional staff, which includes teachers and administrators and some of our professional contract employees, support staff, which would include instructional aides, administrative assistants, and that group, and then custodians have a separate handbook because of collective bargaining needs to be in way. Sorry, but for the most part, there's a lot of similarities between those. Do you have any specific questions? Otherwise, we'd be looking to implement them now this week and get them to our staff, and they'll be signing off on them this year and acknowledging receipt, and it will be in place until next year.
Clarification, there was one on the dress code that was in blue, kind of caught my attention, and it said that the building principal or supervisor will address situations in which employees, I'm trying to make it stop. Well, put it in layman's terms, it'd just be like, so the principals can say if a person is dressed inappropriately or whatever, and then they're sent home. Are they sent home with pay? Are they sent home without pay? How is that working? And then when we start to talk about, the principal or a supervisor, which would be superintendent, whomever, right? Is that what we're talking about? So just the principal, this says principals and or supervisors. Who would be supervisors? Administrators. Could we just change that from supervisors to administrators or administration? And then when it says like, who are the people that say like, okay, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate? Do we have anything in there just that would kind of say, what is appropriate? I mean, because something that I look at, I could say I'm fine with it, but somebody else may look at it and be like, no. I mean, so do we have anything, guidelines in relationship to like how we have with students where we say there's no, this, that, shorts, that type of stuff? Do we have anything in their relationship for staff?
Well, I mean, we outline it, we expect, dress in a manner consistent with professional responsibilities. I mean, we generally, from teaching staff, we're basically, and most staff, we're talking about business casual at a minimum for that. And I think what the feedback from the principals was that we were starting to get staff that were coming in relative, it was not appropriate. We obviously deal with that from a student standpoint on a regular basis, but then to have our adults doing similar behaviors, that makes it harder to, and manage that from the student side. So there was just a request from the principals to have that outlined very specifically in the handbook, to say that there was a process that, the first time there's a conversation, you may get sent home. You will be sent home on a future occasion and then without pay. And then it would be also potential additional disciplinary action, which we do mention for.
Well, we'll probably need that in there. Then if we're going to send them home, make sure we put in there and then they'll be sent home without pay.
And if it is an issue that we've been having, then I would definitely say maybe put some specifications in there if people clearly aren't getting it on their own.
Well, this is the first time we've had, we added this blue language to kind of highlight that, to see it. I mean, I think it's one of those situations, like, I don't know that I want to list every single thing that could go wrong. I think it's one of those, you kind of know it if you see it, or you explain to a staff member like, well, this is inappropriate, here's why, and then hopefully that changes the behavior in the future. I mean, there should be higher expectations for our staff than.
Right.
Yeah,
I understand.
certainly understand that, but to the points that I think were being made here, people are subjective. What one person may see and believe is inappropriate, an administrator may think that that's okay. And so is there any type of generalized guideline for administrators to follow? When they talked about the inappropriate nature previous year, what were the things that were inappropriate? I mean, did they come in tank tops?
They didn't specify when we had the conversation. We didn't ask and they didn't specify.
I think some of it was, it tended to get athletic casual, when you're coming in sweats and things like that, that was mentioned.
Well, I see that I see that in the one for coaching staff or athletic.
Yeah, for obviously for FIA teachers, that's a separate issue, but yeah, I think it was getting fairly casual. And again, I guess if you stick with the business casual sort of idea, and if everyone just kind of followed that, it would I don't think we have issues across the board. The other issue that was brought up as well was that, we were getting staff coming to school wearing other school district attire. Which, you know, they may coach or something at another place,
Oh.
whatever. So, I mean, you know, so then. Again, not university level stuff, but any K-12, it's like, no, if you're gonna wear branded clothing, it should be. So we're just reiterating that again, that some things that tended to happen, again, hopefully this simple reminder, it'll be something that we bring up. When we meet, when the administrative staff meets with all the buildings over the next week. This will be one of the things that we'll highlight, just that we're drawing attention to, and hopefully it alleviates any issues.
Okay, cool. I would just say, I would add in there, you know what, if they're gonna be sent home, they're sent home without pay. So that way that takes all of that guesswork part out to be like, well, you sending me home? Oh, well, I'm getting paid, right? And
All right,
so-
no, yeah, the intention is not that every time, you know, that you can dress inappropriately, so you get a couple extra hours off.
Right.
So exactly, but I'm saying, but you know how people will use a guidebook like that and be like, well, y'all didn't say I wasn't getting paid. So, but yeah, so if you could add that in there, I would appreciate that part. Well, did anybody else see anything else in here? That was one other thing, but I think I'm fine with it because I read it twice and I was like, okay, it seems all right. Anything else anybody saw within here, especially in blue?
And just to remind you, we do have in the language of the disclaimer that the board can change the handbook at any time and it'll circumvent the previous one. So if there is an issue where we, you know, and I'll certainly make the change with that language, that's not a problem. But if there is something else that pops up or if we determine some other thing needs to be brought attention. I mean, one of the things that we have been really stressing too is the cell phone piece, you know, even with the adults where, you know, people obviously occasionally need to text, you need to make a phone call or something like that. But if what you're doing is affecting your ability to supervise children or whatever your job happens to be, then that's a problem. But, you know, as you walk through society now, you see everyone is on their phone all the time. So we're just trying to, again, reset what the expectations are, our professional expectations are for our staff. And so we'll continue to highlight these things. If we determine there's something else we need to mention, we can always bring you a revision and update it and reissue at any point in time. You know, we do provide that right to ourselves to do that.
That's good.
All right, any other questions, anyone? All right, hearing and seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve the employee handbooks as presented?
Dr. Vito, I'd like to motion to approve the 2023-2024 employee handbooks, all three, as presented.
With the addition of,
Yeah,
with that one addition,
The noted change. Okay, with one noted change.
yes.
Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you much, Ms. Walker. Motion made and seconded. Any other further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye.
Bye.
Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 7-0. Mr. Clemick, good job. All right, let's go on to our item G, open enrollment update. Yeah, we were just we kind of already talked about it. Yeah, that's what, remember we were talking about, we wanted to know, well, what was going on with the open enrollment, you know, kind of where were we at? How many students were we getting ready to lose? How many were we getting ready to try to bring, how many were we bringing in? So I think you already kind of let us know what the numbers were. We had 16 new open enrollment seats and all 6 of those are filled, and we had, was it 240 some odd that are open rolled out?
We don't know the open enrollment out numbers yet. None of that gets locked in. We know the ones that are registered internally, but usually like right now in the mobile portal, there are 500 kids that are on the list, but usually they're on because of multiple requests to go to different districts. So they only one of them gets approved whichever one they choose. So that doesn't get locked in until the third Friday count. So we won't have any sense of how many students are going out until then.
When we did the 16 new open enrollment seats, was that for the high school, for the middle school? For the 7th and 8th grade where our numbers were low? Okay.
That's also, we're going to just inform the community of the collaboration of the work with Chairman.
Oh, okay, yeah, that too. One of the things that we wanted to also be able to do is because we had so many students that were open enrolling out of the district and not coming, to where we were doing collaboration, Ms. Shimmons, who's the parent liaison, so working to be able to make telephone calls, letters, phone calls, or whatever to those parents, to those families, to let them know that, hey, the district is here, if you'd like to be able to come in for a tour. We also was asking, well, why wouldn't you want, why your students aren't coming to Brown Deer? So there was a survey that was done for that. Like I said before, telephone calls, letters going out to those families and parents and stuff, and just inviting them to come in. Just come look at our facilities and all the rest of those different things. If there were any questions that they did have as far as a reason for them not wanting to attend. So that was the reason for having the open enrollment update in there. And it seems as though that our numbers are looking good so far. And with the 201 new students. So that is and that was the correct number, right? 201? 201 new students, and I wish I knew out of those 201 new students, how many of those were because of the contact of going out there and saying, hey, the district is here. Why aren't you coming? Is there something a question we could ask, or tours or whatever have you? So I'd love to be able to see out of that 201, how many of them came back just because of that simple phone call, that simple letter, that simple communication, that simple tour or whatever, to be able to do that.
Question.
Yes, Ms. Bacon.
I know it sounds very complicated, but because we have so many students that are going out that we're paying for in the tune of, what is it?
2.1 million.
I'm like, are we able, let's say, for instance, say there are 5 kids that are missing out of 5th grade, having open enrollment to get, for 5 students in 5th grade. Maybe there's 10 in 11th grade, open it up for for the ones that we're missing. Are we able to make some modification so that we can open enroll the students that are out the same slots? Does that make sense? Where seats are never open.
Well, we wouldn't know that until after school started, so we'd actually have to plan for open enrollment in at the beginning of the school year.
No, open enrollment in is Jay.
So, right, so
We did that for 7th and 8th.
that's the reason why we got the 16s there, because remember, as everybody knows, Brownie, we don't do just active open enrollment.
Right,
So,
because we've already achieved that balance.
Mhm.
But that's why I'm saying, would it be inaccurate or bad or wrong or against some type of rule for us to at least be able to say, well, we had 10 seats out for 5th grade.
Mhm.
So we should be able to say, since 10 people went out, can we get 10 people
Well,
in?
yeah.
But I just want to
looking
correct
at
you
the
though,
balance.
it doesn't mean that they've left. They may never have been here. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't mean that there are spaces in the classroom. We make the spaces in the classroom determination based on enrollment projections. That's when we do it in January. We kind of look at, we're expecting to have 20 students per grade, whatever grade you're on, and figure it out that way. In the fall, it's too late to do anything about it. And again, even if you knew that there were 10 students that were in 5th grade, but going to other schools, it doesn't mean they were ever here in seats. They're counted as open enrollment out. They weren't necessarily there. So,
Right, I got that, but still, if they had come here, they would have been our students.
yeah, they would have. They are.
We're paying for them to go somewhere else.
So it is still a net gain, but it's not much.
It's kind of washed us out.
It's not, well, every open enrollment student out, we get $12,300 or $12,500 for, and we pay out $8,600.
And that's the district that they moved into, correct? So.
No,
You had
it's-
John that goes, they send a check for.
We send,
We send the check to them.
We send a check to Wauwatosa for, yeah,
Right.
Send a check to them.
right. So we did, there's still a net positive, but it does, I mean, the expense continues to grow and it's not helpful. We'd rather have some of those students pay here.
Right,
Right,
that's
that's
the
my
whole,
point.
yeah, the whole point of the discussion and bringing in, Ellen to, really help us to try to make it an attractive place for students to remain. I think is probably the question of now, right? Like, kind of looking at us and what we're doing.
Yeah. And that's why I'm hoping that, and so I would really love to be able to break that 201 number down to see out of that 201, how many of those were families that had never come to the district before and opened and rolled out.
Yeah.
And then,
What happened never.
then never came, but then because of that communication, because of that telephone call or that letter or that communication, that they decided to come and give us a chance.
You know, this 201, we have new students who are kindergartens, right? So that's about 125, so we're talking about 75 then, if we subtract those numbers.
75 grade level.
It's not that big. I don't think. That's a small number then. Okay.
All right, so that was the reason for open enrollment. All right, so let's go on to item H, reactivating teaching and learning committee. All right, so and having some discussions and looking at some of our numbers, our results, our assessments, and just some questions in relationship from the board, as well as questions coming about curriculum and our teachers and everything. Like to be able to implement the teaching and learning committee that we had in the past, and being able to re-implement that committee that would be composed of course, a board member, at least a minimum of one board member, administrator. I would love for it to be the director of teaching and learning and or someone on the administrative team, teachers, as well as parents to be part of this committee. Now, again, with this, we were talking about potentially being able to do that. I think that would take a board vote. I would like to have the board actually vote on that to be able to implement the teaching and learning committee. And like I said before, the reason for that is that I think it's just one of those things to be able to keep us a little bit more on the loop, to understand kind of what's going on, as well as for those teachers to be able to talk with administration and with the board and the community members to be able to feel as though that they have some input in relationship to our teaching and learning and curriculum and everything else like that and stuff. So I don't know, board members, questions in relationship to that. I know, well, dang, there's nobody on the board right now that was.
I was.
Wait a minute, yeah.
I'd like to make a comment.
Stacy was on it, but
Yeah, that was Stacy was on there.
I
Yeah,
was there too.
yeah. Stacy, you had a comment first. We'll go Stacy, then Lisa, then you had a comment as well too. Question? Yeah.
I'm wanting to know what the goals are.
Okay, go ahead, Stacy.
Okay.
I know that, I saw your question.
Teaching and Learning Committee. I was on the committee for, I think, 2 years as a parent when we had just come to utilize.
Stacy, either, I think you're either talking too close into your phone or not close enough, one of the two.
Are you on a Bluetooth?
Okay, hold on. Let me.
Okay, well,
There we
Okay,
go.
can you hear me better now or no?
perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. No, I was on the Teaching and Learning Committee, so I think this is a very good idea. And along with the board members that were on it, I think for us, it would give us a better idea as we're making decisions as to where we're going or the goals and the growth that it's making, because it was really a time where the information could really be explained. And I think we'd have less questions during our meetings if we have a better understanding of what's going on when we're making the decision. So I'm in favor of it.
Okay, well, YouTube is the same question. Okay, so for me, this is what the goal relationship to, I think the goal would be for this is to improve communication between all stakeholders when it comes to the education of our students. I think that would be goal number one, because we have had we have had parents that have sent emails or telephone calls in relationship to that and saying that, you know what, they don't feel as though that they have any input or anything in relationship to the education of the children. And being able to sit at the table with the individuals that are making the decisions for that. So I think that was another reason for that, to be able to open up those lines of communication. Also increase transparency to let these individual parents know that, hey, we are doing all of these different things to improve education, enhancement, as well as being able to just, take their thoughts or what they may be thinking in relationship to that and being able to bring that to the table. And that's really my main two goals in relationship to potentially having this committee open back up. I know that there has been conversation actually amongst board members as well too, that, you know, we stopped the committees because one of the things that was happening was some of us was here every Tuesday. There was two board meetings, then you had the teaching and learning committee, then you had the finance and facilities committee. So you were here every Tuesday. Period, point blank, and it started to be a bit much, and so we went away from that. There was also some states that said, you know what, some districts were going away from the whole thing with committees, and so we've done that now for the last 4 years, Ken?
Something like that.
Yeah, like the last 4 years. I think now we've gotten back to a place. The pandemic is over with. Students have been back in school now for 2 years. I think now we were getting back to that place of normalcy or whatever and stuff. And I think that bringing back the committees would be a good step to improve communications, being able to share information and everything else between the administration, the board, our teaching staff, and our parents.
So another part to that, though, was not just that we were here every week, but then it was really just us and the meetings.
So when you say us,
It was the board.
okay, so no representation from the other stakeholders,
Minimal.
It was
parents.
It was minimal. Teachers, yeah, but the parents, there weren't a lot of parents, but I think that, you know what, that the parents that were involved or whatever were heavily involved or whatever.
Because when I first started, and I was on it for 9 years, they were all parents. I don't remember there being any board members.
At the point.
They're always board members.
There was always board, matter of fact, the board actually usually chaired whatever the committee was.
I don't remember teachers.
Yeah, at the
remember
point where
teachers.
we ended the meetings, it was primarily board members, and it was like, well, do we really need to be here every week if we just talking to each other?
I have more questions. Who would come up with the topics? Would these topics be related to the school board meetings that we're having or just other topics?
Oh, this was actually, this is the
Agenda, would it be the same parents that come every week? Because what you just said. seemed like-
parents that come every week. What do you-
Well, to the meetings, would it be the same parents that are on this committee or would it be a rotating set of parents? Because something that you just said made it seem like it would be different parents coming to these meetings.
No, what we.
And how would it be different than the Mrs. Shimon's panel of parents that she has?
I don't know how her meeting goes, but this one right here would actually include our teachers. Teachers that would be involved in this, because the old teaching and learning committee, we did have teachers that were involved in this, and we had our director.
The topics be.
Well, I mean, that'd be the committee would come up with the topics of what they want to be able to do. And it was especially in relationship to share maybe assessment data, curriculum things that are in place and stuff. So that'd be the things that they would actually come up with, or they would want to be able to discuss as they went along. There wouldn't be something that we're gonna come up with right now. We have to vote to even say whether or not we want to be able to re-implement it. I know that Dr. Glass was getting ready to say something, and then we'll go to Ms. Ashley, then Ms. Peterson.
So I wanted to just add that the topics should come from the work that we're doing within our strategic plan, because those are the things that we are committed to move the district forward. So the strategic plan, embedded within that strategic plan is the action plan. In previous board meetings, when this topic came up, we had different directors stating wanting to know the outcome of different curricular purchases that we have had. And so those things that we're doing to improve the district, like to understand our plan, do, study, act processes with all of those different presentations.
Teachers, admin. Yeah, so we up there. Okay, so Ms. Ashley next.
So, is who's responsible for setting the meetings, who's running the meetings, so, how are the meetings structured?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so those questions.
And I get that, and thank you so much for that.
Now, one of the things in the past, what we've always done is a board member always kind of ran the meeting or whatever. They were actually the chair. And then everybody was a part of that. You would meet while you're in your meetings, while you're in that committee meeting, you would start to talk about what are the topics of discussion and things of that nature and stuff. And a lot of that would be ran by director of teaching and learning or a representative from the school or from the teachers themselves being able to get that, bring up that information and or questions and everything else like that. So the agenda would be put together, kind of together, but a board member would actually chair the committee itself.
And then would an item appear, like our agenda here, would there be an item on the agenda for the teaching and learning committee report out?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, now this committee meeting would only happen once a month.
Okay.
All right, so it'd be once a month, it wouldn't be every week, it'd be once a month. We would generally be trying to look at the same individuals being able to do that. So now this is something that we can just turn around and implement next week or whatever. We'd have to be looking at, would there be individuals from the schools, teachers that would want to be representative on the teaching and learning committee to be able to do that, any administrators that would want to do that, as well as any board member that would want to be part of this committee to be able to do this. And another good thing about this is what it does is it enhances communication. It enhances communication, where we're at, what we're doing, where we're trying to go, staying in line and staying in focus with our goals, academically, socially, the whole nine, and being able to do that.
I have one other question. It is, how do we identify the parents who are in, how does that happen?
We put it out there.
We put it out there.
We just put it out there. Are there teachers, like Ms. Walker turned around and she said about the relationship to Ms. Shimmons is being the one. There may be a person that's on that committee that would want to be part of the teaching and learning committee. As far as the teachers and stuff, we have like all of these different teachers. You've got teachers from the elementary school, the middle school, and high school. We'd love to be able to make sure that we had one teacher from the elementary school, one teacher from the middle school, one teacher from the high school, one administrator. I almost taken to be the director of teaching and learning. It could be social emotional learning. It could whomever, but we would like to be able to have a nice cross section of individuals to sit around and do this. And because this committee work is serious work. It's just not, I'm just gonna come to a meeting and sit there and drink water. I mean, this is work and being able to do this. I mean, our meetings in the past, when we had both of the other committees, we reported out at the board meetings. And we carried a lot of water for a lot of things that actually were part of the agendas for the board meetings and reporting out information.
And then how large is it gonna be?
The committee could be as large as we would like it. It's public.
Public meeting.
Yeah, it's public.
But generally 5 to 7 people.
I think, it was not larger than 5. It was, I think we had about, what was it, like 15 people? It was about, I thought it was about, because by the,
Probably 10 or 11, you probably had.
well, give or take.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just share my memory of where we used to do it. I think the couple things you just want to think about is, I think the challenge we had is that theoretically you funnel all of the curricular work through that committee, but then the assumption is all those conversations happen at the committee, and then the board, then the committee is going to make a recommendation to the board to do something. I think one of the problems was that people felt like if they weren't at the committee, now they have to rehash the conversation that was had, at the board level. So you have to be, and that's one reason why board members tended to go to all the committee meetings, because you felt like you were, you were out of the loop a little bit. Now, if you feel comfortable with who you assign to that committee and you're going to take their recommendation, then that's certainly a way of, speeding up that process in the regular board meetings. But I don't know that everybody, was comfortable with that. So again, that's why we had the president who was not on either committee. We had 3 board members on finance, 3 board members on teaching and learning. You had the treasurer running finance. You had usually
Actually, I ran finance. I ran the finance. Yeah, so.
And so it's just a matter of how that works and how it works with the board schedule, because then now you are asking board members to be here a third Tuesday or.
Well, it doesn't have to be a Tuesday. It could be any night that we're talking about. Again, this is preliminary discussions being wanting to find out, is this something that the board would even feel comfortable about doing again? But we do know that there has been parents that have asked in relationship to that, the committee and being potentially having a voice when it came to that.
If I just real quick, just because I know why we did, because I was part of the decision to dismantle committees, is quorums were always an issue. And so, when you set the size of the committee, you got to have enough people to show up on a regular basis. Otherwise, you're failing to meet quorums and you can't really do anything. And I think one of the thoughts that we had was, is there a better venue than a monthly committee meeting to do whatever it is that you want to do? We talked about doing meetings related to the strategic plan and the pillars and something like that. I don't know. It never materialized. COVID hit and, you know, a lot of
Everything
things.
just
stopped.
went.
So I guess I throw that out there just to say like whether it's a monthly committee meeting is a thing or whether there is some other, because we do talk about engagement and the opportunity for transparency in that, but let's just be honest. We've been in Zoom meetings for
Exactly.
4 years now
How many
and
people are-
nobody's online right
How
now.
many people are online? That was what I was just about to
Right,
say.
so-
Parents care so much that 0 people come to these meetings in person or
So I
on Zoom.
They're not gonna come in
It's a
person,
very-
that's gonna make it harder to do.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's why
very
I have a
interesting.
suggestion, you know, I know it takes a little extra work, but if there's if maybe that's added to the podcast or something that teaches those tenets that you talked about with the, you know, the teaching and learning and the strategic planning and the action plan, and then they can add some feedback and then get some information back, maybe on I don't know. Just some interaction that way where
What are
like,
you looking
okay,
for?
this is what's happening with the strategic plan.
What are you trying to find?
Issues still on.
Oh, okay, all right. But now, I guess only I want to say, ladies and gentlemen,
Hear what I just said?
yeah, I heard exactly what you said. So I guess because I don't
I'm saying
podcast,
like,
I don't know.
I'm just saying, there's a way to disseminate information without having a meeting. So if we had information that went out in the manner that we wanted to go out to the parents, the teachers, and encourage them to provide information, either, you know, typing it back into the system or some type of feedback through a system. I just mentioned podcast because I don't know what form you would want to use, a platform, but having someone to present information regarding the strategic plan, regarding action plans, regarding, you know, PDA, you know, access, and then encouraging because the whole goal is for parents to have an understanding of what's happening in the district. That information can be communicated in another way other than the meeting and encourage people to give feedback. I'm just making.
But the parent has to listen. The parent has to listen, and that's the
I know.
challenge. If you have Dr. Brown, we send out a survey, how many people really answer it? So now we say, oh, you have to listen to this podcast.
I agree with you.
There's
but I'm
such a
just
small
saying,
portion of people that are
But
gonna
I'm
do
just
that.
saying, if it's there, I'm just saying that could be an alternative.
It could
to a
be,
meeting.
but the same thing,
That's all.
our people are gonna do it.
Yeah,
People are gonna do it.
just an alternative to a meeting.
All right, only thing I'm gonna say is this, right? You never know what's gonna work until you put it out there. Before I got on the board, I was part of the finance committee. Before I got on the board, you say you were on the teaching and learning committee for 9 years before you got on the board. I mean, so there are individuals that are out there that do listen. There are individuals that are out there that do care. I think that we put it out there and we find out exactly who would actually like to be involved or whatever. I mean, we can't take because of the school board meeting, we say that there's nobody coming. That doesn't necessarily mean that individuals aren't asking questions. They're not looking at this after the fact or whatever have you. But again, I just think that this is just one of those places now that we're getting into a place now that this could be something, an option for us to be able to do, open up for our parents, for to meet with our parents, our teachers, administrators, and board members when it comes down to the education pieces for our kids. We're going to this new strategic plan where our biggest focus is going to be improvement of our test scores, improvement of our curriculum, improvement of all of these different things. So you know what better way to be able to do that if you had this committee that could actually work, like parents could actually work with the teachers, work with administration, work with the board to be able to do this and stuff. So I'm just, like I said before, I'm putting it out there. Can I tell you everything about the whole thing right now? No, of course not. I already said that, you know, we're going to have to vote to say whether or not we're even going to do it in the first place, number one. I just also think that too is we need to be able to open some of these different things up for our parents. And if we said that we put this committee together, let's just say we put the committee together and you have low attendance or whatever have you, like before we used to have problem with quorum, but I've never had a problem with quorum with the finance and the facilities and all the stuff, because we always were there. So I don't know about the other ones.
We had to change the rules of what the quorum was because we had There were times where it was 3 board members sitting there.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to decide.
But after a while, but again, so what we can do is some of these other pieces or whatever, have you all these specifics that everybody's asking for? I don't know all the specifics for these right now, so I'm putting it out there as an idea coming from the board to be able to re-implement a committee. All right, and like I said before, if you don't try it, you'll never know if it works or not. I mean, we just can't sit on the sidelines all the time.
But how would
Wait, Ms. Smith, so you got Ms. Smith first and then back to you, Ms. Mackey. Ms. Smith?
Oh, hi. I think from what Dorothea said, I don't think that's the goal. I don't think the goal is for parents to know what's happening with the curriculum, which it would be great, but that's not the marketing place for the curriculum. That's when they go to curriculum nights. They talk to the teachers, they talk to the teaching and learning committee would be the place where teacher leaders, Dr. Glass, and board members are gaining an understanding, like Dr. Glass said, of what we're doing. So one of the things that I know that may be difficult is, because you don't want all the board members there every night, is if we put in a process of, whoever the representative on that board is knows that, 2 days after that meeting, they need to send a report to the rest of their board members. Now, I don't know about, contacting everyone, if that's like if that's a quorum, if you send it out, but okay, this is the meeting I went to, this is what they're talking about, expect, this to be sent to the board for consideration. So I think that line of communication, and like someone said, trust in who your representative is the most important. It's not that space shouldn't be for parent understanding of the curriculum, because that should be for us understanding well enough to vote and consider things, having all the information.
I understand what you're saying. And I think that when I ended up getting on the board during the time that I was on there, first of all, there weren't any teachers, and understandably, there weren't any teachers there, because how are you soliciting teachers to work extra time beyond their day? I mean, that's just a lot to ask teachers to come in. Are they going to be paid for this additional time that they're coming in?
Teachers pay.
Okay, I just remember us
Teachers did when I was
eliminating it. First of all, we had a bunch of referendums, so people weren't coming at all. I don't remember any teachers on there. I could be wrong. I know that I was asked to be on the board by Courtney. Courtney asked me to be on the board, and I ended up, not the board,
The committee.
the committee, and I stayed on the committee during the 9 years that I was on there before I ran for office. I just don't. Personally, I enjoy being on the committee, but I really don't remember having a whole lot of, I don't remember a charge.
And I don't remember teachers when I came in 20.
And I don't remember teachers either.
I don't either remember.
I don't remember teachers at all, ever.
Karen, you remember which teachers were?
I do. We had
Crow's Nest, Falcon's Nest lady, the facilitator for that from elementary. I know that they were members.
Who?
The Falcons.
We had Beth Bowling, Jenny Carey, myself, before I became an administrator. I think it was,
Before me then. Okay.
yeah, and they were, but we tried to have a couple for each building. Granted, they couldn't come to every meeting, but it was, there were assigned representatives, and it was asked, a lot of the times they were maybe BDEA members in addition to.
Right, and then I know, like for ours, for the finance of facilities and stuff, I know Rob Green was on there with us. Yeah, it was Rob, I thought it was one other teacher, it was Rob Green and. No, Mike was
Mike
Unity.
Mike Cass,
He was a vendor or something. Yeah. So, yeah.
Rob was the only teacher.
So, but again, let's just put it out here like this. I put it out here or whatever to get the thoughts. Does the board even want to move forward with the re-implementation of trying to put together a teaching and learning committee? And then from there, we'll just turn around and it'll come up to the committee to come up with the charge and all the rest of those different pieces. I just wanted to put it out there to see, would that be something of interest from the board members and from the administration?
To say, let's take some time to consider it. And in the process of considering it, if we could get a copy of what the descriptions were for the committee before, that could help in being able to make that decision.
I have, I think.
Yeah, it should be.
It was in, WHP version board policy, so I have it.
Yeah.
Not with me, but I have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and like I said before, this was just bringing this up as a topic for us to have some discussion in relationship to it and not to come up with what it was gonna look like right now and everything else like that, okay? All right. So let's go on now to our next item is our board reports, SWSA and legislative update. There's been a million things that have been coming through through SWSA in relationship to different measures and everything. A lot of stuff is, Stacy, were you able to go to that meeting?
She got. It just dropped. Before you
Because
start.
Stacy and I were actually double teaming that meeting, and we just had a meeting, and I asked Stacy if she could go to it for me. But again, with SWSA, there's a million different things that are going out there right now that they're trying to wait to find out who's gonna vote to approve certain things. That's pretty much about it. And it's gonna be the same thing that pops up in WASB.
Yeah, WASB is starting to gear up. I think they are talking about like their annual meeting webinar, which is on the 23rd. The resolution, the last date to submit, if you have a resolution to submit to them for consideration is due by the 15th.
15th
Of
of
September. But this body has to approve it. WASB. So.
All right, thank you very much. Ed Foundation.
We started a meeting, we did have a meeting last week. Just getting familiar with the new board. It's a lot of new people. So just kind of talking about how things have been and where we'd like to see things going forward. So nothing significant to report at this time.
Thank you very much. Park and Rec.
We actually didn't have a meeting because they're doing work with a company on a department comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which will encompass a review of current offerings and a plan of the next 5 years. This project could be comparable to a comprehensive review plan or strategic planning. So they're going to conduct focus groups. Our next meeting is supposed to be right after Labor Day. So we'll see if that happens, and if it does, I'll report back.
All right, thank you very much. All right. Let's go on to item number 7. Our board planning calendar, 23rd is welcome back kickoff at Novak Family Fieldhouse at 11 o'clock. Welcome back week, this the 23rd through 30th. Open house is August 30th from 12 to 7. September 1st is the first day of school. Isn't that a Friday?
Let's stay 5, 6, and 9th grade.
Okay, I'm still saying, isn't that a Friday? Okay, all right, so first day of school is September 1st. Labor Day, of course, is the 4th. And on the 5th is the first day of school for K-5 through 12. The 11th is our special board meeting. The 12th is a special board meeting. That's the 20th is the joint meeting with the Village of Brown Deer and the school district. The 26th is our regular board meeting. The 28th is the budget hearing and annual meeting. And the 29th is a PL day, so there's no school. All right.
If I may, I would like the board just to consider the possibility of doing a quick virtual meeting next week. Obviously, we have some last minute hiring and it would be great to be able to actually approve contract. We did it last year on like the 30th. If you have some time next week, you know, either the 30th, 31st kind of area, that we could do something if necessary, or just be ready for that if necessary, because our hope is certainly to have a few more names from the Eagles board coming first.
So it's okay, you're saying the 30th, so Wednesday, the 30th?
I'll take whatever you offer. We'd like to, we'd rather not wait till the 11th.
Can't do 30th, 29th.
Yeah, about a couple days, right?
It'd be great to do before the 1st.
What does everybody look like that Thursday, the 31st?
What time we
The
talking?
earlier the better.
Early, like, can
Whenever you want, whenever
we do like, can everybody do like a 4:30?
Yeah.
AM?
No.
Oh.
That I can't.
Virtual. Could we do it early like we did?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we can do that.
Virtual, it can be virtual, it'll last 5 minutes. It's just a matter of-
Oh, 5 minutes, okay, so, well, now, if you guys want to do it in that morning, the 31st in the morning, of course, not at 4:30. Well, or 8,
8 o'clock.
can we do 8?
That's what we did last time.
I mean, okay, again, it's either we do it earlier in the morning, like 8 o'clock, or we do it like at 4 o'clock or something like that.
I'd say
8.
8 AM on the 31st. Well, if obviously.
If needed.
If there's nothing we have to do, then we'll cancel it or prepare for that as a possibility.
Okay,
Vacancies.
5 or 6 maybe.
all right, so that is a potential board meeting, all right, so.
May I also add, an open invitation to all board members to help us, bring our students in on first day of school in the morning.
So are we talking about the 5th one on the 5th? We talking about the 5th?
Right.
Okay.
And that's at what?
Last year.
7:30.
Okay, so 7:30 at the high school, then 8 o'clock, is it 7:30 at the high school?
Well, 7:45 is first, 7:30.
7:30.
So 7:30 at the high school, 8 o'clock at the middle school, and 8:30 at the elementary school?
Yeah, 15.
So it's because it was like a half hour in or so. So again, it's just clarification, high school 7:30, middle school is 8, and elementary school 8:30?
Middle school and high school are at the same
They
time.
come
So
They're coming in at the same
They come
time?
at the same time. Some come in, high school comes into the North Commons, the middle school comes to the.
Right, because I know we kind of caught them in that one hallway.
What would be nice if we had, if we can split, so we had fewer people on the middle school side.
Yeah.
So
All right, so we're gonna say 7:30, then for the middle high school, and then is it still 8:30 down at the elementary school?
But by 8:15, 8:20, they'll be lining up on the.
Right, I know, so we started that with them on the playground and then we walked them in. Okay,
So
All right.
8:15 there.
cool. Anything else?
Wow, this year's going by.
It's already done. Just think about it like this. It's already getting to be September. We'll be talking about 2024 in a minute. So with that being said, would somebody like to make a motion to go into closed session?
Dr. Vito, I'd like to make a motion to enter into closed session, discuss personnel matters pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.851C.
All right, motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Bacon. Motion is made and seconded. Roll call.
Vito.
Aye.
Daniels Ashley, aye. Bacon, aye. Peterson,
Aye.
Robinson, aye. Smith.
She can't go into closed session.
I thought I could vote to go in. I know I'm leaving.
Then we coming back, in. No, we are coming back out. Remember, we taped those other ones. Yeah. Okay, all right,
And Walker.
Aye.
all right, motion carries. All right, we will now go into closed session at 7:42. And we will be coming back in open session. So thank you, everybody that has been online right now.
For the record,
Yes,
he is not coming into closed session.
Can't.
He's absent.
right,
He's asking for closed session.
yes, can't be on closed session first.
You took the state so far in advance that, you know, on September 28th, there's a Patrick game that evening.
Yes, we are aware of that. And so,
Is that the night game at 7:30?
yes, it is a night game. So.
Wait, hold on, Kara,
Here.
Kara.
I need Dr. Brown.
Eve.
Keep on this.
Motion, we have a second? All right. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing seeing none, we're going back into open session at 9:24. Dang, that's crazy. Because it came out at 7:42, so the numbers are 2 and 4. Man, I'm about to play those. All right, so with that being said, all right, so we're back in the open session. Would someone like to make a motion resigning the resignation of Christopher T? Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Christopher Teague as a high school science teacher, just the one, effective August 16th, 2023.
All right, motion has been made. Do we have a second? All right, thank you, Ms. Walker. Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing seeing none, all in favor, raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? Hearing seeing none, motion carries 6-0. We accept the resignation of Christopher T. All right, Susanna Schroeder.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resignation of Susanna Schroeder as an elementary school librarian effective August 8th, 2023.
Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion made, second by Ms. Macon. All right, any discussion? Hearing seeing none, all in favor will raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? Hearing seeing none, motion carries 6-0. We thank Ms. Schroeder for her work at Brown Deer and wish her well. All right, with that being said, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? Bless you.
Bless you. We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robinson. Motion has been made. Do we have a second? Thank you very much, Ms. Peterson. Motion is made and seconded. All in favor, raise hand and or aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries unanimously 6-0. And I call this meeting over with at 9:26 p.m. Thank you very much. All right.